Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the course Management Information Systems. In the last lecture, we were studying the emerging technologies, or you can say the contemporary hardware and software platforms. As we studied before, that IT infrastructure में हमने देखा था कि 5-6 किस्म के platforms हैं जिसमें hardware और software platform were the first ones. तो उसको ही हमने extend किया था. And we did the contemporary hardware and software platforms जिसमें हमने different emerging technologies को study किया था, जिसमें हमारे पास थे mobile digital platform as well, जिसमें हमने देखा था कि businesses are now turning towards smartphones and handheld devices for their business operations. Then the major aspect of turning towards the contemporary hardware was to reduce the power consumption of the machines, to create cost effectiveness, to utilize the already available resources, and to minimize expenditures on hardware and new kinds of software. So for this, the other kind of technologies that were being used were the grid computing, जिसमें different computers go through the network combine किया गया था that were geographically located in different locations, and उन सबको combine करके they were creating a supercomputer so that they could utilize the computing power of all those computers for performing complex tasks. Then there were two other kind of technology, that was virtualization and cloud computing, which are sort of interrelated as well. Virtualization में हमने देखा था कि physical machines को could be shown to the users as multiple logical resources. A single physical machine could be used as multiple logical resources, and multiple physical machines could be shown as a single logical resource to the users. Right जी. इसी concept को लेके there was a concept of cloud computing. That means there were the cloud service providers that were providing certain kinds of services to the customers or to the companies, and the services were in the form of either they were giving the infrastructure to the customers, that means they were giving the hardware resources to the customers in a virtualized environment, either then they were giving the platform as a service. The platform means that they were giving you the development tools and the hardware, etc., to develop applications for yourself. Then they were giving software as a service. Software as a service means that they had the software on their own hardware, their own storage was being utilized, and the people were only using that software for or a certain company was only using that software. Right, and it was paying either by subscription or by rent, and they were just simply utilizing that software and storing their own data on it. So that was basically that, utilizing the already available resources, or to cut some costs and not to because otherwise अगर ये वाली चीज़ें वो ना करें तो वो क्या करें, they would be buying new hardware for their extended business processes. Right, next we looked at the different kinds of emerging software technologies, or the contemporary software. That in that the first one we saw was the open source software. Open source software again is cost free, can be modified, and can be used according to the purposes of the company. And again, this would reduce costs. So all of these technologies are moving towards in order to save the costs of the businesses. And the next one we saw was a service-oriented architecture and the web services. Web service, again, loosely coupled softwares होते हैं that are using a standardized language and different kinds of standards, or a standard through which different applications communicate with one another without using the human intervention. So the language used for this was XML, and there was some kind of protocol that is used as well. So, and then the service-oriented architecture was basically a set of web services that were working together to achieve such a task. Then we moved on towards the software, that was the software outsourcing, the software packaged software, as well as software as a service. So we said that when the companies want certain kinds of software for their businesses, then there are three methods of doing so. Number one is to get the software get a kind of a software that is already made, right, from the vendors. That is called a package software. Other thing they can do is that they can build their own software, or they can simply outsource the custom development of the software. So most of the time ये जो outsourcing होती है ये बहुत उस किस्म की task ही होती है जिसमें ज़्यादा let's say that you don't need a lot of expertise in that, but it requires a lot of cost. For example, आपका data maintenance, आपके call centers, ये वाले जो चीज़ें हैं, that were the first thing that was being outsourced and or rather offshore की जाती थी ये वाली चीज़ें. Now, because of the expertise in the lower wage areas as well, so new development is also given to the offshore areas. इसके अलावा, if the companies do not want to create their own software, there's another option for them that comes in the category of the cloud computing, that is software as a service. They simply use the service that is given by the vendor of or the cloud service provider, and the software is placed on their site, so they can access it virtually through the internet and basically utilize it, use it as their own software. Right, so these were different kinds of technologies that are the emerging technologies that the businesses can use now to achieve maximum benefits out of them and to reduce costs and to save power as well. But when these companies adopt these kind of technologies, then there are certain management issues and there are certain cost issues as well that they have to consider. For example, the management and governance issue would be that when you adopt these kind of new technologies in the businesses, then that means that you have to have new policies for these kind of businesses, you have to have new kinds of contracts, you have to have new kinds of agreements for these kind of businesses. For example, if you are moving towards a mobile platform, then you have to devise certain kind of policies of the use of those mobile devices. Or if you're moving towards the cloud services, then you have to sign new kinds of contracts and agreements with the cloud service providers as to how can they use the service and how would be the service available to them, and what would be the contract between these two companies, the cloud service providers and the company itself. So that would obviously bring in a new change of the kind of, they have to sort of adopt to the new kind of change in the technology. Also, when they adopt new technologies, then they have to keep in mind that whatever technology they're using, it has to be flexible, it has to be scalable, so that if the business increases, they don't have to pay extra for it, and they can easily get the hardware and the software that is easily scalable. Right, iske alawa, there was the cost issue, that is the management and the CEO often wonders that who is going to control and manage the IT infrastructure, who is going to control all this, and who is going to control the costs between the department. Either the departments are responsible for their own costs, or the cost is being managed centrally. So there was a competitive forces model that we did that that sort of makes you analyze the kind of IT infrastructure that you already have, and the kind of IT infrastructure that you want to develop in the company or you want to adopt in the company, so that keeping a balance with the costs and the requirement of the company. So उसमें हमने business strategy भी देखेंगे, IT strategy भी देखी, उसके साथ साथ हमने देखा कि आपके competitors जो हैं वो IT sector में कहाँ तक आगे हैं, वो कितना खर्च कर रहे हैं उस IT के ऊपर. So keeping in mind all of these factors, you define your own IT infrastructure policy and you define your own IT infrastructure costs as well, कि आपने कितना कॉस्ट लगानी है उस IT डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर अपनी टेक्नोलॉजीज को इम्प्रूव करने के लिए, so that you can eventually improve the information system of your organization. Right जी, so this is what we did in the last chapter, कि हमने ये सारा कुछ देखा था. We studied about, उससे पहले we were looking at the different kinds of hardware and software जो regularly use होते हैं. Today we're going to start off with the next platform, that is the data management platform. That is कि information और data जो है वो organization में किस तरह manage करते हैं, and that is we'll see with the help of the databases. Right. Why do we need to learn about the databases system, the different kinds of data centers, and the business intelligence? Why do you think we need to study all this? This is because when the companies deal with a lot of information, they deal with a lot of data, and जब data entry हो रही होती है, that means that a lot of data is going inside the company, or let's just say it's going inside the information systems, right? So how do you think that data is managed, and how do you think where does this data go, and how is it going to be useful for you? So for example, if you become a marketing manager, so you can utilize this data, different kind of data that has been entered into the computer system through either simple data entry या सिर्फ ये देखने के लिए कि customers के बारे में आपने जो data दिया है वो किस किस्म का data है, right? Either वो उनके बारे में different किस्म का data है जो आपके forms के through enter हुआ है, or it's the kind of data that has been entered when they have visited that website, ठीक है? तो उनके जो website priorities हैं उनको देख के enter हुआ है, or it's about the data from the past purchases. So the marketing manager can look at all this data that has been placed somewhere in the company or through the help of the computers. So वो सारा data देख के वो they can sell the products to the potential customers. They can figure out who their potential customers are और किस customer को कौन सा product ज़्यादा sale करना है और किस तरह sale करना है. So for the marketing managers again, the databases are important. इसी तरह HR manager के लिए भी again databases are important, because HR के लिए it's all about keeping track of what the who the employees are, what are they doing, उनकी insurance policies क्या हैं, उनका pay structure क्या है, उन्होंने कितना work उठाया हुआ है company के अंदर, कितना नहीं उठाया हुआ, and they have to basically figure out their pay structure for raises, for appraisals, all these kind of things. So all this data is very important, and unless and until this data is organized in a meaningful manner to become information, or information be ऐसी जो कि accurate हो, timely हो, relevant हो, so unless and until it's that, then उस data को कोई फायदा नहीं है. So that's why a database is very important, because it keeps the data in an organized manner. Right. So when you are studying this chapter, दो यहाँ पे questions मैंने दिए हुए हैं that you have to keep in mind. Number one is, what role do databases play in overall effectiveness of information systems? Right? When you're studying databases, तो वो किस तरह आपके information system को बेहतर बना रहे हैं? Also, what techniques do businesses use to maximize the value of information provided from database? That is, कौन सी techniques जो हैं वो businesses use कर सकते हैं so that कि जो information उनको database से मिल रही है वो उसको एक सही तरह से use कर सकें. Right जी. So like other components of the information systems, your databases again are very critical for achieving the organizational goals. Right, because managers need information that is accurate, that is timely, that is relevant, and databases give you exactly that. Accurate means again information that is without errors, timely means that it is on time without delay, and relevant means that it is given to the right person in the right format and in a right way. So basically, जब तक ये तीन चीज़ें नहीं होंगी, the managers will not be able to utilize that information and make decisions. So basically your databases are very important for information management and decision making. Decision making के लिए these are the key essential points. Right जी. So keeping this whole concept in mind, that databases are critical for a good information system, or to make an information system successful. Keeping that in mind, we move on with the learning objectives of this course. इस course में हम क्या देखेंगे? Sorry, इस lecture में और इस चैप्टर में हम क्या देखेंगे, we will define the general data management concepts and terms, ठीक है. Then we are going to identify the advantages of database approach and describe relational database model, ये वाला देखेंगे. Also in the next lecture we are going to identify the role and functions of DBMS. We are going to identify the current database applications that the businesses can use and also identify the role of the business intelligence while using these databases. ठीक है, business intelligence क्या होती है and how can that be useful in taking benefit of the databases. So for today's lecture we're going to do the first 2 points. We're going to I'm going to give you an overview of the data management concepts. Again, you might have studied that in your first course as well, Introduction to Computing, but we're going to do it again and identify the advantages of the database approach as well as describe the relational database model for you. Okay ji. So when you talk about the data management, so the first चीज़ हमारे दिमाग में आती है, that is the hierarchy of data. That is very important to describe कि आपके जो computer में, for example, because we are dealing with the computerized information systems, so computer में जब data store हो रहा है, so that is always in the form of zeros and ones, that is bits. So a collection of 8 bits is called a byte, and that byte represents a character. So that you can see this one is the the very basic building block of the hierarchy of data, that is the characters. So character basically, for example, F is a character जो कि 8 bits को 1 byte, as I said, represents 1 character. Then we move on to the fields. The next building block in the hierarchy of data is the fields. That is the collection of related characters. So a collection of related characters that basically mean something is a field that describes a field. For example, Fisk here is simply the last name of an employee, for example. So a name of an employee could be one of the fields. Then again, last name hoga, first name hoga, address hoga, city hogi, that could be a field. Right, then we have the records here. Record would basically mean it is a collection of related fields. So record here is this. This is the social security number, this is the last name of the employee, this is the first name of the employee, and this is the hire date of the same employee. So record is the related field. So this is the record containing the related information that is related to only one person. Similarly, आपके दूसरा employee होगा, उसी का भी इसी तरह का record होगा. So files again is a collection of related records. So when you have this related records, a file would again contain the names and their details of all the employees in the company. So here we have a file with the names and details of all the employees in the company here. And now, the collection of files that are related again belongs to a database. So that makes up a database. For example, this was a personal file. इसके अलावा you could have a department file, you could have a payroll file. So all these kind of things become sort of a part of the database. Right जी, इनकी definitions भी हम साथ देख लेते हैं. Like I said that the building blocks of hierarchy start from the bits. 8 bits make up a byte, and the byte basically presents one character like A or B or F or C. And again, field or in a database हम इसको attribute बोलते हैं, represents a combination of bytes that make up one aspect of a business object. One aspect means कि उसका एक aspect को define करेगा. For example, last name को define करेगा, first name को define करेगा, etc. etc. Record again is a collection of related data fields. That means name, address, phone, information of one student could be one record. Right? And then file जब हम बात करते हैं तो database terms में it is an entity as well. It's a collection of related records. That means all students in a certain course, for example, would be a file. So उस course में जितने भी students आ रहे हैं उनकी सारी details वगैरह could become one file. Similarly, database is a group of similar files or similar items. All students and faculty in a certain school, for example. That could be a database of one school. Righty, so these basically are the building blocks of the data, and to understand the databases again, it is very important to understand कि आपका जो hierarchy of data है वो किस तरह develop हो रहा है. Next, we move on to the traditional file-based approach to data management. जब हम data management की बात करते हैं तो hierarchy of data के बाद the very important thing is कि आपका जो data store हो रहा है वो किस तरह store हो रहा है. जो आपका data manage हो रहा है, for example, either in a computerized way or in any way, तो पहले जिस तरह होता था that would be in a file-based approach, या इसको file processing approach भी बोलते हैं, or a traditional approach. उसमें आपके सामने ये क्या है that there are different kinds of files, right? So and they have their own databases. ये जो round सी शक्ल नजर आ रही है ये अलग-अलग databases हैं. So initially organizations जो हैं वो basically encourage that every functional department have their own application programs. So when they have their own application programs, that requires that they have their own set of data. You need some certain kind of data as well. So because of different kinds of application programs, they have their related files and their related data as well. So if you do not follow the database approach, then every department will have its own set of files and will have its own set of data as well. Right. So we have a payroll program, we have an invoicing program here, we have the inventory control program, we have the management inquiries program, and every department will have its own set of databases and own set of data as well. अब क्या होगा? Because every department will have its own set of data and own set of files, that means कि उसमें data redundancy आएगी. That means there will be duplication of data, and because they are maintaining their own kind of information, so every department is having their own kind of information and there is no such information sharing between the departments, so that creates a lot of problems. और वो problems क्या हैं? Number one problem in a traditional file-based environment is that data redundancy. क्या है? Simply it's a duplication of data, so that the same data is stored in multiple locations. For example, if HR is storing a file on the employee, right? For example, the employee is a manager और वो project को handle कर रहा है, so the project department जहाँ project हो रहा है जिस department में, that is also storing information about that certain employee. So अब क्या जगह है? So basically your information is being duplicated. So for example, if the manager changes his telephone number, तो telephone number जो है वो update हो रहा है HR की file में, but it's not being updated in the file that is kept with the project जिस उस department में जहाँ project हो रहा है. So this creates a lot of data inconsistency as well. जब आपकी duplication of data होती है तो updating data becomes a problem. Modifying that data becomes a problem, because if it is being modified here, तो वो automatically, there's no one database. That's why it has to be manually modified everywhere in every file. And sometimes it's not possible to do that. So that creates data inconsistency, that the same attributes have different names or different values. For example, ये तो मैंने फ़ोन नंबर की जैसे एग्जांपल दी थी. एक जगह पे मैनेजर का जो फ़ोन नंबर है वो पुराना वाला लिखा हुआ है और दूसरी जगह पे मैनेजर का फ़ोन नंबर अपडेट हो गया. Right? Also, for example, attributed values का ये भी एग्जांपल होता है. जैसे अगर if it's a cloth manufacturing company, तो उनके different sizes होते हैं. Extra large होता है, small होता है, medium होता है, and all these kind of things. For example, some of them write extra large as XL, और दूसरी जगह पे extra large लिखा हुआ है extra large as simple EXTRALARGE. So that again creates inconsistency in the value of the attribute as well. Also ये भी हो सकता है कि management name को उन्होंने किसी और तरह लिखा हो, या management ID जो है वो किसी और तरह लिखी हो, सिर्फ ID करके उसका नाम दिया हो, और दूसरी तरफ लिखा होगा management ID या project ID or something like that. So basically, when you do not have a single database, then that creates lots of duplication of data and an extreme amount of data inconsistency. Also, that automatically creates problems in updating the whole database as well. Right, ji. Then we have the program data dependence. That means changes in one program require changes in data, because जब वो एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्राम उस डिपार्टमेंट के लिए लिखे गए थे, then that means कि उसी के accordingly उन्होंने उस डेटा को सेट किया था. So if you change the program, the requirements of the program changes and you have to make changes in the data. For example, अगर एक प्रोग्राम का requirement था कि वो 5 digit zip code लेता है, और दूसरे प्रोग्राम की requirement थी जो अपडेट किया है उन्होंने प्रोग्राम, उसकी requirement है कि 7 digit zip code लेना है. So it would be hard to sort of compare it with the other kinds of files जिसमें 5 digit zip code पड़े हुए हैं. Again, it creates lack of flexibility. That means it's difficult and expensive process to retrieve ad hoc reports. उनमें program जो है वो इसी तरह हुई है that they have to generate reports at a certain or at a certain time. Right? So ad hoc reports, for example, all of a sudden आपको ये वाली information चाहिए, then जो आपको spontaneous information चाहिए that you cannot get easily. Then there is a lack of sharing, obviously because the files are stored in different locations, ठीक है, and they're stored in different departments. That means it is difficult to be shared and accessed in the timely manner. So information that needs to be shared between the departments, that becomes a problem. Right. So considering all these problems of a simple traditional approach or a file-based approach to data management, so we have a database approach to data management as well, जिसमें ये सारे problems हमने solve किए हैं. और कैसे solve किए हैं? We solved it with the help of a database management system. Right? Simple वही वाली चीज़ है कि different programs are running at the front end for different functional departments, right? However, they have a single database now. ठीक है? Database में you have these files, ये सारी files हैं, and these are interrelated files. कैसे interrelate होंगी हम आगे चल के देखेंगे, and they are all communicating with the database with the help of database management system. Right, ji? So, to understand the database better, let's go through the different sort of, let's say, the different points in the database approach. Number one, database itself क्या चीज़ है? It's basically a organized collection of data or a collection of related files containing records. So again, हमने देखा था कि उस single database में it had the same files, but those files will be linked or will be interrelated. So basically, it's an organized collection of data, organized in a meaningful manner, so that it becomes information, and not just information, it becomes valuable information. Right. Then we have the entity. So each file that we have is called an entity, like I said before. So it's a generalized class of people, of places or things or objects for which data is collected, stored and maintained. For example, you have the supplier, that could be an entity. You have a product, that could be an entity. You have an employee, that could be an entity. Similarly, there could be a project, that could be an entity as well. Obviously, for any kind of object, जिसके different attributes होंगे. Again, attributes क्या है? Specific characteristics of each entity. For example, अगर हमने supplier की बात किया, the supplier has, for example, a supplier ID or a social security number, or supplier has a name, or supplier has the address, supplier has a city. Similarly, product की बात की है, product ID होगा, product price होगी, product manufacturing date होगी, expiry date होगी. So these kind of things are the attributes of the product that define the product. Product के वो किस किस्म का product है. Again, when we talk about another thing in a database approach is the database management system. Database management systems को हम detail में next lecture में भी देखेंगे. For the moment, let's look at database management system as basically a program that links the users to the database, or the application programs in this case. These are the application programs with the, so here we have this database management system that is linking these application programs with this database. So database management system is basically an intermediary that you are using as an interface. So it becomes an interface for you to access the database. और database में again हमारे पास क्या है, वो सारी files हैं that we also looked at in the file processing system, with the only difference that all these files are interrelated. ठीक है, और किस तरह interrelated है ये हम आगे चल के देखते हैं अभी. Right जी. Now, as we move on to the database approach, और हमने देखा था that the traditional approach had certain problems. ठीक है, तो उन problems को ख़त्म करने के लिए there was a database approach. अब इसके फ़ायदे क्या क्या हैं? What are the advantages of the database approach? Let's have a look at them. Number one is reduced data redundancy. So पहला problem जो था that was of the traditional system was that the data was being duplicated. इस जगह पे data duplicate नहीं होगा because you have only one database. So data about a person or the invoice or the product is stored only one time. ठीक है? So anybody who is accessing the उसको कोई भी access चाहिए of any information, if that person has access, तो वो एक ही database के अंदर से वो information ले लेगा. For example, जो मैंने अभी बात की थी कि manager का अगर number manager की details चाहिए तो manager के बारे में employees का जो table है, employees का जो file है, उसके अंदर सारी details मौजूद हैं. So anybody who wants to access that information can simply access that file. And also, okay, next we have the improved data integrity. Data integrity basically means that the data is complete, accurate and consistent. Right? That means कि जो आपका data आप enter कर रहे हैं in the computer or whatever is stored in the computer is in the complete form, is in the accurate form, and it is consistent. There is no inconsistency in the data. So वाली जो हमने पहले बात की थी that traditional file-based systems create data inconsistency. So that affects the data integrity. Here, since the data is stored only once for each entity or each file, we don't need to worry about the updating multiple records for the same entity. So that means कि आपकी data integrity है वो maintain रहेगी. The data remains intact and it remains, and through different kinds of error checking and validation techniques, it can be checked that it is complete, accurate, and it is consistent. So when you're going to do the database management systems आगे जाके हम देखेंगे तो उसके जो capabilities देखेंगे उनमें हम देखेंगे कि जब हम data enter कर रहे होते हैं in a computerized system तो उसमें हम data checking किस तरह करते हैं, data की error checking किस तरह होती है. Entry के वक्त ही आपके validation rules apply होते हैं that check that जो भी आप data enter कर रहे हैं that is correct. For example, date के different formats होते हैं. ठीक है, you have the date first, then the month, then the year. Or sometimes you have the month first, then the date, then the year. So again, when you're entering this kind of data, तो आपके data entry के वक्त ये वाली चीज़ check हो जाती है that if the format of entering the data is date first, then month, then year, तो आप उसको किसी और तरह ना लिखें. ठीक है? So it should be entered in the same manner so that it is consistent with all the other records. Okay, so this was just one example. Similarly, since the data is stored only once, so it's easier to update the data. So that is again the advantage of storing data in one location कि आप उसको एक दफ़ा modify करेंगे. For example, manager का जो number है वो telephone number change हुआ है, that will be updated only once. You don't have to look for any other kind of file जिसमें आपने वो data modify करना है. It's only modified once and it can be accessed by anybody. Right जी. Then you have the data and program independence. Again, the data files are separate from the application programs and thus can be used by many applications. Again, you have a database management system that is sort of linking the application programs with the database, and it is the work of the database to give the information to the application programs. So, आपको data जो program है that are not interdependent anymore. Now, fifth is that we have the strategic use of data. That means you have accurate, complete and up-to-date data. जब generate हो रहा है, that means it can be used for proper decision making and for proper information management as well. So it means that it has the improved strategic use of data, because database का मकसद ही यही है कि वो आपको इस किस्म की information दे that is helpful in decision making. Then next we have the improved security. Again, security किस तरह हो सकती है? With the help of backups, with the help of passwords, right? अगर आपने passwords लगाए हैं, that means you are only granting access to people who need that access, ठीक है? And so that you have enough privacy for the different kinds of department. जिस department को, जिस functional area को जो information चाहिए, उनको सिर्फ उसी information का access है. So that again involves improved security. Not anybody can look into the database and get information. Right, these are the main advantages of the database approach. इसके अलावा there are two more advantages. That is the standardization of data access and shared data information resources. That means आपका जो data है, that is एक तो ये कि they can create a standard कि किस तरह आप data access कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. दूसरा ये कि different kinds of data can be easily shared between different departments, and also information resources can be shared between different departments as well. So that makes it easier as well. इसके अलावा there are three disadvantages of the database approach. Number one is that it's more complex because we're using a computerized system, we're using a database management system that could be difficult to set up and operate. So that means again that requires expertise. Not anybody can work on that, and because of this, it is more expensive as well, because you need to purchase additional personnel for that. You need to have a database administrator, and you need to have additional hardware requirement, because when you have when you need to store information or data in a larger quantities, then you require larger storage options. But then again, we studied the different kinds of storage options. जिसमें हमने जब different kinds of contemporary hardware technologies देखी थी, we also talked about the storage area networks. So we can obviously put this in a cost-effective module as well. And also, when you say it's more expensive, then we have to look at it in the long term में हम इसको देख सकते हैं कि long term benefits अगर इसके ज़्यादा हैं तो उसकी initial costs इतनी matter नहीं करती. Then it's difficult to recover from failure. Yes, failure in DBMS shuts down the entire database, because that is your basic interface. अगर database management system में problem होगी, then it's difficult for you to, it's almost impossible in fact for you to access the database. So it is difficult for you to recover from the failure. अगर a traditional file-based system होता तो एक file को access करने का problem होता, लेकिन बाकी सारी files तो access हो रही होती हैं. But in this case, it's not so. So it's very important to maintain the database management system, and it's also important to have a cost-effective solution for having your database management system and databases. Okay, now let's move towards data modeling. Abhi tak we were looking at the data management. Data management में we looked at the hierarchy of data. ठीक है, data जब computerized systems में store होता है तो वो किस form में store होता है. Then we're going to look at then we looked at the two kinds of data management approaches. The traditional approach, उसके disadvantages क्या थे. Then we looked at the database approach, वो क्या होती है, and then we looked at its different kinds of advantages and the disadvantages as well, and we discussed them. Now we're going to move on to the data modeling. Data modeling basically क्या है, that when you're building a database, then there are following questions that must be answered. ठीक है, 2-3 चीज़ें हैं जो आपको consider करनी पड़ती है when you are building or designing a database. Number 1 is the content, कि उस database में कौन सा data store होगा और किस cost पे store होगा. Right? Number 2 is the access, that what data should be provided to which users and when. ठीक है, जो डेटा आप स्टोर कर रहे हैं, पहले तो आप ये डिफाइन कर रहे हैं कि कौन सा डेटा स्टोर करना है. नेक्स्ट, वो वाला जो डेटा आप स्टोर कर रहे हैं वो किसको प्रोवाइडेड होगा और कब प्रोवाइड होगा. राइट जी. देन वी लुक इनटू द लॉजिकल स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द डेटाबेस. हाउ शुड डेटा बी अरेंज्ड. डेटा जो आप स्टोर कर रहे हैं वो किस तरह आप अरेंज कर रहे हैं सो दैट इट कुड बी बेनिफिशियल फॉर द कंपनी. देन यू लुक एट द फिजिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. Where should data be physically located? जो आप डेटा स्टोर करेंगे वो आप कहाँ स्टोर करेंगे. मेन फ्रेम स्टोर करें, सर्वर स्टोर करें. What would be the physical location of that data? So keeping these 4 things in mind, these 4 critical points in mind, you design your database. ठीक है. So designing में 2 चीज़ें आ जाती हैं. One again is the logical design. Logical design basically is the abstract model of how data should be structured and arranged. Right? Logical design में आपके पास आ जाते हैं, आप पहले डिफाइन करते हैं आपका डेटा कौन सा है और वो किस तरह अरेंज किया गया है और किस तरह आप उसको स्ट्रक्चर करेंगे. And for that you use the data model. A data model basically is a diagram of entities and their relationships. Again, let me remind again that entity जब हमने कहा था तो that is a simple file. That means any entity that will have its own set of attributes and that will become one entity. ठीक है. And their relationships. That means if you have a supplier as an entity and you have a product as an entity, so what is the relationship between a supplier and a product? Right? So a data model, basically we're going to use an ER diagram for entities and their relationships. Then we talk about the physical design. लॉजिकल डिज़ाइन के बाद आप फिजिकल डिज़ाइन पे आ जाते हैं. दैट बेसिकली is used to fine tune the logical design for performance and cost. That means it improves the response time and reduce the storage space. आपका logical design would simply be something on a paper और physical design में आप basically देखेंगे कि आपने actual database को कहाँ पे store करना है और उसको हम किस तरह improve कर सकते हैं in terms of easy retrieval or in terms of faster response time and in terms of reduce storage space हम किस तरह उसकी reduce कर सकते हैं. Right? So these are the different aspects you consider when you're designing a database. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to design the logical design of the database. You're going to figure out what the data is, what are the entities, and what will be the relationship between those entities in a database. So like I said, when you're using the data model, तो the data model के लिए हम जो चीज़ use करेंगे that will be the entity relationship diagram or the ER diagram जिसको हम कहते हैं. So basically entity relationship diagram में you use basic graphical symbols to show the organization and relationship between the data. So for example, entity relationship diagram जब हम define कर रहे होते हैं तो जब हम different entities में relationship define कर रहे होते हैं तो 3 चीज़ें आ जाती हैं उसमें. One of them is a one-to-one relationship. That means, for example, you have one order and one order will only generate one invoice. सही है? So that will have a one-to-one relationship. So that will be defined in such a manner. ठीक है? Either you define it like this, 2 lines डालेंगे या 1 line डालेंगे, doesn't matter. So basically it's the other way around. So one order will have one invoice and one invoice basically represents one order. Right जी? One to many, जब हम show करेंगे, we will show with the help of this kind of graphical notation. That means again you have one supplier that can have multiple products, that supplies multiple products, and one product is only supplied by one supplier. Right जी. Many to many, again जब हम relationship define करेंगे it will look something like this. ये वाला सिंबल जब हम यूज करते हैं दैट इज फॉर मैनी टू मैनी, और जब बार्स यूज करते हैं दैट इज फॉर वन. सो लेट मी गिव यू अ सिंपल एग्जांपल. जब हमने बात की थी ऑफ एन एंटिटी, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द सप्लायर. And we have another entity, product. Righty. Now we have a relationship between these two. Our relationship क्या है? That a supplier provides product and the product is supplied by the supplier. अब इसमें जो रिलेशनशिप हम डिफाइन करेंगे वो किस किस्म का रिलेशनशिप है कि एक सप्लायर जो है दैट कैन गिव यू मल्टीपल, दैट कैन प्रोवाइड यू मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट, बट अकॉर्डिंग टू द रूल एक प्रोडक्ट जो है वो एक सप्लायर ही दे सकता है. सो यू हैव वन प्रोडक्ट coming from only one kind of supplier. You don't have the same product coming from multiple suppliers. ठीक है, लेकिन one supplier can give you multiple products as well or multiple kinds of products as well. Right, so here we have defined a one to many, ये वाला relationship हमने define किया है between a supplier and a product. So this was a simple example of how your entity relationship diagram works, where this is the entity और ये जो हमने डिफाइन किया दरमियान में दैट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द एंटिटीज. नाउ वी मूव ऑन टू द रिलेशनल डेटाबेस मॉडल. रिलेशनल डेटाबेस मॉडल बेसिकली ऑर्गेनाइजेस डेटा इनटू टू डायमेंशनल टेबल्स, ठीक है, जिसको हम रिलेशंस बोलते हैं, विद कॉलम्स एंड रोज. ठीक है, सो वी हैव वन टेबल फॉर ईच एंटिटी. फॉर एग्जाम्पल वी हैव अ सप्लायर, तो सप्लायर का एक टेबल होगा, प्रोडक्ट है, प्रोडक्ट का एक टेबल होगा, एंड द फील्ड्स और द कॉलम्स स्टोर डेटा रिप्रेजेंटिंग एन एट्रीब्यूट. जब आपका टू डायमेंशनल टेबल है दैट मीन्स योर कॉलम्स विल स्टोर द फील्ड्स, और फील्ड्स क्या हैं? जो आपके एट्रीब्यूट को डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, उस एंटिटी के एट्रीब्यूट्स को डिफाइन कर रहे हैं. रोज विल स्टोर डेटा टू रिप्रेजेंट records. So rows will be representing the different records of the entity. Key field basically is a special field that identifies a record, right? But we have a primary key as well. That means a unique identifier for the record. That means it uniquely identifies a set of records. It cannot be duplicated, and it basically used to distinguish a record. Righty. Now domain is the allowable values for these attributes. For example, the attribute for pay does not include negative numbers. So आपका domain for an attribute would be कि उसमें किस किस्म का value आप डाल सकते हैं. For example, जिस तो हमने ये भी example दिया कि pay का अगर attribute है, अगर आपने pay enter करनी है कहीं पे, तो आप उसके अंदर negative value नहीं डाल सकते. So that would become the domain of that attribute, that you cannot enter any negative value. Again, जब हमने date की बात की थी, so again you have a domain for that would be the format of the date. That means it's DDYY or it's DDMMYY, so it's date, month and year. इस format में आप date डाल रहे हैं, किसी और format में आप नहीं उसको डाल सकते. So that would become the domain of the attribute. For example, so basically your relational database is in the form of tables. So हम अभी इसकी example देख लेते हैं. इसको थोड़ा सा समझने के लिए. I'm going to follow the same one कि हमने supplier और product को ही लेते हैं. So let's make a table of the supplier first. Right जी, here we have the S name, मैंने नाम दे दिया उस attribute का, supplier name. We have the supplier address here, and we have the supplier city here. कि वो supplier का नाम क्या है, supplier का address क्या है, supplier किस city से belong कर रहा है. Right जी. So in this one, what do we have here? The column, like I said, is the field, or it defines the attribute. Of the supplier. So this is the table of the supplier or the entity called supplier. Right जी. Here we have, we can call this the key. We can call this the key field because the name basically identifies the supplier. और अगर हम यहाँ पे, for example, we have given और यहाँ पे हम कोई भी एड्रेस देके और यहाँ पे हमने सिटी फॉर एग्जांपल लिख दिया लाहौर, so basically these become your records. Right जी. Now we have a problem here. आपका नेम जो है, किसी भी सप्लायर का नेम डुप्लीकेट हो सकता है, राइट. फॉर एग्जांपल यू हैव अली नेम और द सर नेम, या अगर हमने लिख दिया अली हैदर लिख दिया, देन दैट मीन्स देयर कैन बी मोर देन वन अली हैदर एज वेल. सो व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू डू इज वी आर गोइंग टू क्रिएट अनदर फील्ड, राइट. एक और फील्ड हम बनाएंगे और हम उसको लिख देंगे SID. That would become the supplier ID. And supplier ID, obviously, because it's unique, it will be a number, for example, and it will be unique. So that will become the primary key for that table, or the primary key for that entity. Similarly, for the product table, we have the product ID. For example, we have the ID 01, 03. We have the product name. We have the price. So we can give any kind of name to the product. And I've left this one blank. ठीक है? ये अभी हम define करेंगे. For example, again, this is your primary key here, because it uniquely identifies each record in this table of the product. Right जी. Now when you're using the entity relationship diagrams, तो हमने बोला था that one supplier, जो relationship हमने बनाया था, that means it has multiple products. So relationship between these two was one to many. अब जब हम one to many का relationship define करते हैं तो एक चीज़ हम इसके अंदर include कर देते हैं. That means how are you going to link these two tables? You're going to link with the help of, and this becomes your foreign key. Right जी. तो ये वाली value हम यहाँ पे ले आते हैं. So that means with the help of this SID, you can relate the product with the supplier, right जी. अब ये हो सकता है कि for example आपका ये 2 ना हो, ये भी 1 हो, right. So foreign key is something that can be duplicated as well. For example, आपका ये वाला product number 1 is also provided by supplier 1. The product 03 is also provided by the supplier number 1 as well. ठीक है. इसके अलावा कोई और product होगा जो कि that could be provided by the supplier 2, right. So the foreign key can be duplicated as well, but here product key remains the same और यहाँ is unique here और यहाँ पे जो आपका SID है इस वाले table में that is unique as well. So here we have the primary key, this becomes the primary key again. However, जब हम ये इस वाले टेबल में लाएंगे, प्रोडक्ट वाले टेबल में SID लाएंगे, तो ये फॉरेन की बनेंगे और फॉरेन की कैन बी डुप्लीकेटेड बिकॉज वी सेड वी हैव अ वन टू मैनी रिलेशनशिप between a supplier and the product. Right जी? So we said that one supplier can have many products. So similarly, ये वाला टेबल यही define कर रहा है कि one supplier can have multiple products. इसका भी supplier ID जो इसको represent कर रहा है वो 1 है, इसको represent करने के लिए supplier ID भी 1 है. So we have one supplier and multiple products, but we don't have this product ID यहाँ पे नहीं है हमारे पास. That is because एक product जो है वो एक ही supplier दे रहा है, वो multiple suppliers नहीं दे रहे. Right जी. Next we move on to how can you manipulate data in a relational database model. ठीक है, अभी जो मैंने आपको simple एक example करके दिखाई थी, I basically defined कि relational database model को हम किस तरह model करते हैं. That is with the help of in a tabular form, with the help of fields and columns and rows. ठीक है, उसमें हम primary key define करते हैं and we define a relationship. And when we define a relationship in a tabular form, तो हम उसके अंदर link create करने के लिए we create another field depending on the relationship. Right जी. Now how are you going to manipulate the data or use the data in other words in a relational database model? तीन चार तरीके to do that. Number one is selecting. Selecting basically means that eliminating rows according to a certain criteria. Eliminating rows means that selecting का मतलब है आप सिर्फ एक चीज़ उसके अंदर से select करके ला रहे हैं according to a certain criteria. इसके लिए हम example देख लेते हैं of these three tables. That means one, we have a project table with us. Next is a department table and the third one is a manager table. So project table में आप देख सकते हैं इनके अंदर जो relationship बन रहा है, that is there's a relationship between this and there's a relationship between this as well. So manager can head various departments. ठीक है? So here we have a one-to-many relationship. That means the manager जो है, that can be a manager of multiple departments, and multiple departments in one department can perform multiple projects. Right जी? So this is the kind of relationship between these three tables. So similarly, according to this, ये वाला जो यहाँ का primary key है, that is the foreign key here. Okay, so when we're defining selecting, हमने बोला था कि it is about eliminating rows according to a certain criteria. Now, for example, in this one, we, for example, the manager wants to know the department number of a certain project. ठीक है, उसका criteria ये है कि for example उसने figure out करना है कि you have the project, he knows that the project ID, a project number, a project name जो भी है, that is 226, and it wants to figure out कि उसने 226 का project का department number figure out करना है. ठीक है, तो वो क्या करेगा? So it will be easier for him to figure it out और ये वाला record सिर्फ उसके सामने आ जाएगा. Why? Because it wanted to figure out the department number for 226. So ये वाला जो सारा record उसके सामने आ जाएगा and he will figure it out that the department number for the project 226 is 003. ठीक है? So this is basically selecting a certain amount of information while eliminating the rest of the information according to a certain criteria. So according to the certain criteria that the project number 226, he wanted to figure out the department number that relates to that project, या उस किस department ने वो वाला project किया था. right ji? So this is called selecting. Then we have projecting. Projecting means that eliminating columns in a table. That means वो वाली information चाहिए जो सिर्फ required है while eliminating rest of the information. For example, a certain person wants information about the department number and the social security number of the manager only. ठीक है, अब वो क्या करेगा, अगेन कोई क्राइटेरिया देगा या इस किस्म का क्राइटेरिया देगा कि उसके पास जो इंफॉर्मेशन आएगी that would be only this column and only this column. मतलब कि वो इस किस्म का क्राइटेरिया दे रहा है उसको प्रोजेक्ट करने के लिए that he wants information only about the department number and the social security number of the manager that is associated with that department number. ठीक है, ये वाला जो कॉलम है ये नजर नहीं आएगा because according to that person's requirement उसको ये वाली चीज नहीं चाहिए, right? So this is called projecting. Again, when we going to do the database management systems, तो हम देखेंगे कि database management systems को use करके हम किस तरह ये वाली manipulations कर सकते हैं with the data in the tables. ठीक है, अभी मैं आपको सिंपल बता रही हूँ तरीके that relational database में you can do these kind of things. ठीक है, इस तरह data जो है वो manipulate और use हो सकता है while in a relational database model. ठीक है, पहली चीज हमने कहा था selection, that is on the basis of criteria. Again, on the basis of certain criteria or simple on the basis of requirement, you can simply eliminate the columns that you do not want. ठीक है जी. The next one is joining. Joining क्या है? It's basically combining two or more tables, again according to a certain criteria, to show you a certain combined information. ठीक है जी. उसमें क्या देख लेते हैं that for example, the president of the company wants to know that the manager in charge of a product. He wants to know the manager in charge of a project, so that will only show the project number, the project description, the department number, and the department name. Okay, next we have joining. Joining में हम क्या देखेंगे? We're going to basically combine two or more tables, and when you're combining two or more tables, again it's according to a certain kind of criteria or the certain kind of requirement of that person के उसने क्या देखना है. So पहले वाले projecting में we were eliminating certain columns from the table. इसमें we are combining different tables. So for example, for a manager who is in charge of a certain project, he wants to know the details of the project and the department combined. ठीक है, तो उसके लिए क्या शो होगा? उसके लिए for example we have this. For example, अगर वो कहते हैं कि मुझे project के names according to a certain department लाके दो, तो वो क्या करेगा? उसको ये वाली चीज शो होगी, project, description, department name, department number, and the department name. So basically these two tables will be joined together according to a certain criteria to show the whole kind of details. So project and department tables are going to be combined to show the kind of details for a certain kind of a manager. For example, this was the kind of manager who wanted to know कि मुझे कौन सी चीजें चाहिए, project चाहिए और department चाहिए. So according to the certain department, he will get the information related to that. ठीक है जी. So basically, it's going to combine the two tables. Now, there's another aspect called linking or linked tables. That means as long as tables share at least one common attribute, tables in a relation database can be linked. Like I said before, कि अगर आपने relationship उनके अंदर define की हुई है, so there is always one common attribute that is linking the tables. For example, supplier product में हमने कहा था supplier ID is the one that is linking both the tables, and that is used to provide useful information and reports. ठीक है, अब linking में हमारे पास क्या जाता है? For example, the company manager wants to know the name of the sales manual project and his hire date. For example, the company president wants to know the name of the manager who is responsible for this project, sales manual project, and उसकी hire date क्या है, right जी. तो अब वो क्या करेगा, उसका criteria क्या है, sales manual. This is the criteria of that person who wants to know the information. ठीक है. अब वो linking किस तरह हो रही है, this is how it's happening. Sales manual के साथ जो department है, that is being checked first. ठीक है जी. Now this department has been figured out. अब क्या है, 003 is the department. Now it's going to go in the department table. 003 becomes the criteria here. Now it's going to see कि उसके according या उसको जो reflect कर रहा है वो manager कौन सा है, उसका social security number या उसकी ID कौन सी है. That is 1045. Right? Now, this because has a linking here, that means 1045 becomes the criteria here now, और इसके accordingly the name and the hire date will be shown to the president. ठीक है. So this is how the linking happens. First criteria हमारा क्या था, sales manual था, because the president wanted to know कि कौन सा manager है who is responsible for the project named sales manual. ठीक है. Sales manual के accordingly हमने देखा कि sales manual का department number क्या है. Then we looked at department table. Department table में देखा कि उसका social security number क्या है, and when we have the social security number, then it automatically picked up the name and the hire date of the manager. So this is how these were the results of the जो भी criteria और जो भी query हुई थी, ये उसका result बनता है. So this is how the linking happens, that if the tables have are linked together or have a relationship between them, then it becomes easier for the person to get useful information from the tables, from a relational database model. Right ji. Again, then we talk about the data cleanup. Ab data cleanup kis tarah ho raha hai? That data cleanup doesn't mean that you're eliminating the data or you're clearing it up, but basically it means that आप उस data को useful बना रहे हैं. So if you remember the first chapter में when we were doing the information systems first, we said that valuable information कब होती है? When it's accurate, when it's complete, it's reliable, it's economical, it's flexible, it's relevant, simple, timely, verifiable, accessible and secure. ठीक है. अगर इनमें से कोई feature आपकी information को define कर रहा है, that means your information is valuable, and that also means that you have the data integrity and you have a valuable data as well. So data cleanup is to develop data with these characteristics basically. So for example, अगर आपके पास एक if you're a member of a club, right? So if you're a member of the club, you have the name, your name, ठीक है, आपने telephone number दिया, you have the gender defined, you have sort of आपने कोई fee pay किया, and that was the date of the fee paid. ठीक है. Now okay, I'm just giving you an example, exemplary form में सिर्फ 3 digit में आपको telephone numbers दे रही हूँ, ज़्यादा detail में नहीं दे रही हूँ. To cut everything short, there's a certain fee and a certain date with that. बताने का मकसद यहाँ पे ये है that for example आप एक club के member बने और उसने जिस किस्म का table बनाया हुआ है, उसमें उसने नेम पूछा है, उसने टेलीफोन नंबर पूछा है, जेंडर पूछा है, फी दी है और डेट ऑफ द फी उसने मेंशन किया. नाउ सपोज वी हैव दिस टू सईद इमरान हियर फॉर एग्जांपल. ठीक है, सो यहाँ पे सईद इमरान कुड मीन एनीथिंग. दिस कुड बी टू डिफरेंट पर्सन एज वेल, दिस कुड बी द सेम पर्सन एज वेल. ठीक है, वी डोंट नो दैट. एंड फॉर एग्जांपल, और इन फर्स्ट केस अगर हम कहें कि ये दोनों एक पर्सन है, दैट मीन्स व्हाई डू दे हैव द डिफरेंट टेलीफोन नंबर्स. प्रोबेबली सईद इमरान ने अपना टेलीफोन नंबर चेंज किया किसी टाइम पे. ठीक है, सो उसकी एक कंप्लीट न्यू एंट्री बन गई है, राइट. और इट कुड बी टू डिफरेंट पीपल एज वेल, वी डोंट नो. So there is a confusion here, and the data is inconsistent here, and it's not complete, it's not reliable. There's a sort of confusion here. So इस सारे confusion को दूर करने के लिए there is a process of data cleanup. और data cleanup के लिए वो क्या करता है? That basically you create two tables for this, so that it becomes easier to manipulate the data. So इसमें you have the ID, the name, the telephone, the gender of the person, and in the next table again you have the ID of the person, the fee paid by the person, and the date of the fee paid. So in this case you have one, and a certain fee paid and a certain date of the fee. Right जी, अब इसमें problems नहीं होंगे because the person can go with his ID here. ठीक है, सईद इमरान या कोई भी नाम में या शेख इमरान किसी में कोई problem नहीं होगा. They will not get confused because they have the ID. If the person says I have this ID and I want to change the telephone number here, that means उसका record एक ही दफ़ा update होगा, एक ही दफ़ा modify होगा. There won't be any confusion and there won't be any data inconsistency. So making two tables out of one table and linking them with the help of the ID of a person, that could basically help in manipulating the data in a better way. So basically इस सारे table को expand करना two tables में और data को easily available करने के लिए और accessible करने के लिए और accurate और complete करने के लिए, the process that is जो process है उस सबको हम data cleanup बोलेंगे. Right? So data cleanup is basically to develop the data or to develop the tables in such a way that it meets the requirement of valuable information. That means जो information आप उससे get करेंगे that meets the proper characteristics of valuable information, जिसमें बहुत सारी जो हमने चीज़ें chapter 1 में भी पढ़ी थी वो आ जाती हैं. The basic one means that the information should be accurate, should be reliable, it should be relevant, and it should be timely. So also relational database के फायदे ये होते हैं that it is easier to manipulate, it's easier to control, and it's more flexible because the data is organized in the tables and और उसका जो data retrieval होता है, जो information retrieval होता है, that becomes easier. And large companies basically use these relational database model even now. These are used extensively because of its ease of use and its reliability as well. ठीक है, corporate databases use होते हैं for marketing, for accounting, for different kinds of functional areas में आपके relational databases use होते हैं because of the same reason that it's इसके अंदर हम ad hoc जो है information वो get कर सकते हैं. The information retrieval is easier and you can complicate your programs to get information from the databases which are simply placed in tables. ठीक है, सो आपका जो रिट्रीवल मैकेनिज्म्स हैं वो आप उसको थोड़ा बहुत कम्प्लेक्स करके अपनी जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है वो ज़्यादा अच्छे तरीके से गेट कर सकते हैं. लाइक आई गिव यू द एग्जांपल ऑफ द लिंक्ड वाली एग्जांपल में हमने देखा था दैट द प्रेसिडेंट वांटेड टू नो कि सेल्स मैनुअल वाला जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसका मैनेजर कौन है. सो it only became possible because of the linking between the tables that he could get to the name of the manager as well as the hire date of the manager. So it was the linking between the three tables that made it possible. So relational database model are effective only when you have a proper logical design made. A proper logical design means that you know what kind of data to be put in the database, you know कि उसका content क्या है, you know उसको access किसने करना है, and according to that आप उसमें data डाल रहे हैं. Also, you know that उसके अंदर relationship आप किस तरह create कर रहे हैं, so that it could be beneficial for the people who are going to use the database. So when you're creating the logical design, it's always important to get the feedback from the people who are working in the functional areas or the functional departments, so that you could know that किस बंदे को कौन सी information required है, and what would be the easier way of providing that information to those people as well. Right, ji. So today we did the two basic things in the database management, that is we did the data management and the data model, and these are the very key aspects in organizing and arranging the database. Aapka data management or data modeling are the key aspects or the key points in the understanding of the database and in creating the databases. आपको पता होना चाहिए कि आपका डेटा मैनेजमेंट टेक्निक कौन सी यूज़ कर रहे हैं और डेटा मॉडलिंग टेक्निक कौन सी यूज़ कर रहे हैं. एंड व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द डेटा मॉडलिंग, सो द बेस्ट अप्रोच इज़ द रिलेशनल डेटाबेस मॉडल, जिसमें आप टैबुलर फॉर्म में डेटा रखते हैं, एंड यू कैन एक्सेस द डेटा by the help of different manipulation techniques that was selecting, joining, projecting, as well as the help of linked tables. Right, so this is all for today. In the next lecture, we're going to go into detail of the DBMS, that the data management systems किस तरह काम करते हैं, उनकी capabilities क्या हैं, relational databases के साथ जब वो काम करेंगे, then what are the capabilities of manipulating the data, as well as different kinds of database management systems. Also, we're going to look at the different kinds of business applications that can be used, that can use the databases, किस किस्म की applications हैं. Also, we're going to look at the different kinds of business intelligence को हम किस तरह use कर सकते हैं while using the databases. Right, so this is all for today. We're going to meet in the next lecture. Thank you very much.